Welcome to this podcast, Mission GJ. At this time, we have our apostle, Erickson Salazar, and Pastor Lisette Rodriguez. How good, we're here flowing in the prophetic for the house. Pastor Lisette, how are you doing? Hello, I'm excellent. Happy to share this space with you. How good. We are also very happy to have you here in this space. Experience in the mission. And in that line, we would like to learn what experience in the mission you've had here in Generation Joshua together with Apostle that has impacted you and that has given you a teaching that you want to share with us. Let us know, Pastor Lisette. Good. Well, I can share with you about my experience at the time of being exposed, where I've gotten fear, insecurity, thinking that I'm not prepared, or if maybe I won't be able to assume that mission that I'm being sent on. But nonetheless, when we are sent, first we are prepared, we are formed, we are given the example, and we're given the guidance. I was telling Apostle not long ago that I have realized that the fear in me came because I thought I was going to take that on my own. That I thought I was going to take things on based on my tools, that I was the one that was going to do it based on what I understood, but it's not like that. Here, everything that I do, it will be with the body, not be me by myself. First, I'm going to receive the strategies and the instruction, and I'm simply going to take on a small part of the mission. And everything that has had to do with covering Apostle, that's been very strong for me, where I've gotten those insecurities and I've had to face them. And I'm going to give you an example. And it's when Apostle has gone to travel and he has, asked me to present the preacher for the prophetic dial on Sunday. And you might say, but that's so simple. But yes, I would say, but why me? And I wanted to run away. But I would push forward and I would flow and everything would come out well. Thankfully, thank God. One time, Pastor Yesenia calls me that she was in a meeting with Apostle and that she wasn't going to have time to get to another meeting where she was supposed to go, that Apostle wanted her to receive some people, host people. So about 40 minutes before the meeting, she calls me, tells me, Lisette, Apostle asked if you can take on this mission because we're still in this meeting and we won't have time to get there. And I was like, I'm going to show you how it was. I was with my work uniform, with files that I had to deal with. And, I said, well, what is the meeting about? Who is it with? What am I going to do? The palpitations in my heart started. And then I said, Lisette, remember that you said that you were going to listen, that, the resisting is over. And 20 minutes of arguments later, I take off, I go. I did my hair, I put makeup on, I looked like I had spent 2 hours getting ready. And I got there before the people, and I set up my stage. I set everything up. I wasn't, nobody could tell that this was like a rush last minute thing. I found a place because we didn't even have a place to meet, and I had to choose it. I had to contact them, and I apologized on behalf of the Apostle. And when I finished, I took care of the people and I sent Apostle the report. And I felt so satisfied because that's not the normal thing in me. I fulfilled the mission and everything was impeccable.
Wow.
That is an experience in the mission.
Eso sí.
Wow.
Wow.
That is the
Eso es
good
bueno de
thing
ser
about being a
sí.
body.
Y es que
Because
el
there's
trato
so, the
además,
demand is so great that
tú
there's a moment that,
tú vas a tener que,
you
se
know,
te juntan, o sea, esa urgencia,
situations, last minute
imprevisto. Y
emergencies
qué bueno que
pile
Dios te
up, but
tiene
it's good that you can count on
y mira
people.
eso.
And look what she says, 40 minutes
Que
of,
resolver
of lead
que
time.
vaya a tal
And
misión.
like she
Y
says,
como
she was like, what am I going to do?
¿me entiendes?
But she's prepared. She's been prepared since she was little.
Óyeme,
When we
algunos
say
dicen,
go, even if they don't know, they're going to know. Ask me why.
pregúntame por qué.
Because the one that is sending is going to be sponsored. Everyone that is sent will have the seal of the sponsorship. That's why when we will go on a trip, at that time there were a lot of trips, and Lisette was one of the ones that I would ask her to present, introduce the preacher. I never knew that she would get this frightened.
Sí, porque
But it sounds simple,
sencillo, tú dices, pero eso es sencillo.
but anything that has to do with the prophetic, any prophetic move has a weight
Peso y una envergadura. Porque
because it's a confrontation in the spiritual world.
sí,
Let me tell you something.
al contrario, a mí me
That fear is the best thing that can happen to people. Why? Well, because when you have the weight of the prophetic,
profético. O sea,
all the human sensors, you feel the burden.
la carga.
And so it's mandatory that your body and everything feels like, now what? And that you feel that tension, and it's good because that makes you vulnerable and dependent on the Spirit. So you're not trusting yourself. You're not thinking, oh, I'm going to take this on. No. To this day, I respect having this prophetic dialogue. I come very humbly.
Tengo mi
I have my tension because I am vulnerable. I don't come here boasting that I'm somebody with 30 years of experience. No, I come here as a person that is, rough, and I handle myself in a rough way with these prophetic dialogues, but it's because I respect the prophetic. So what she felt as fear, yeah, it's good. That is what brings her to handle herself with care, not trusting herself. So it keeps her alert. Well, it keeps you in a position of dependence. Yes, because some say, oh, I got this, that they have a lot of ability. But no, what happens is that you have to be very sensitive to the Spirit. And one of the beautiful things about the Spirit is showing yourself incapable. In that sense, for there to be this flow, you have to come organically and humble yourself. And that fear is because when you don't have the control, you have that tension. But when you see the Spirit flow, you say, wow, everything goes away because now you're flowing. Now see how she came back with that report. And I felt so happy because I remember when it happened. It was a couple, right, from the inner parts of the country. Yes, they wanted to introduce the relationship to you. Oh, it was a couple, yeah. So what happens? How good I felt when I took care of that case. But, I was able to take care of the people that I was with, and I was able to keep this commitment. And how good to be able to fulfill all my ministerial work, which always is a constant demand. And how powerful. So we respect people, meetings, because it is good to have support. And something that we've always said, that there is bread in the house. There is bread in the house. And it's good to have a house that you have support. We would always say that people, what needed was a good push. So, like in Pastor Lisette's case, we went for her. One day she got a good push. And it's so good that now she goes give by grace what she received by grace. And she gives that good push also. So when she did that, in the midst of her fear, pressure, her job, leaving her job behind, everything changing, she had to get ready. But when she finished, that joy of the fulfilled duty. And she said, wow, to be a useful piece to be somebody that was able to model Christ, to be a channel of blessing for those that didn't have that support, that advice. That is powerful. That is powerful. And those are the people that God will always sponsor. Those that are diligent. See that she says the battle came, she felt overwhelmed by rejection and rebellion. No, she wanted to run away because she used to suffer from escapism. She saw that she got that visit from the mark of escapism. So she had a pedigree in that area. The other area was like when you were exposed her internationally, she used to get blocked. And whenever, she would go into a new territory. But all that she was trained, and people think it's easy. But even when you are sent in missions in other territories, everything changes. The situations here are not the same situations when you go somewhere else. It's a different scenario. It's a different story. And we trained her little by little. But I can also say something interesting, and is that the consequences when you don't fulfill what corresponds to you. And you know what happens? That the flow stops. And now you're not sponsored the same way as when you would sow towards the kingdom. Sow yourself towards the kingdom. Do you know why I like to sow myself for the kingdom? Because the production, the flow doesn't stop. If I don't sow, I won't harvest. I'm not thinking about the harvest. That's not my problem. I think about the sowing the seed that I'm sowing. I don't care about harvesting. You know why? Because I'm always harvesting. Because since I've never stopped sowing, my harvest has to come from wherever. I'm harvesting things from 20 years ago. So imagine, and I haven't stopped sowing. So the production doesn't stop. So that's a lifestyle. It's not a benefit as such. It's a lifestyle. That's why you're not paying attention to what you're going to gain or what you're going to have, because what you're doing is simply assuming the principle, but you know that your sponsorship is entirely from God. So you don't have to force anything. And in Lisette's case, that sometimes is a person that used to administer herself like, okay, I have to do this, I'm my wife, I have kids, I have a business, but I also have to do things. She used to do it more based on a calendar. And it's not that in the spiritual world there's mess, but the children know that there's a calling that is above everything. And it's not that the calling breaks your agenda or goes against the order, no. But there's a timeline that tells us that what we have to adjust is everything else, not the purpose. So if you know that you have a calling, then you say, okay, I need to fulfill the calling, but I have a lot of things. No, the many things, adjust them to the work, to the calling. And that's what was happening. People don't understand that even you commenting the word, you have to put that in your calendar. Like you put in your calendar, let me put an alarm to comment the word. Maybe another alarm to comment the tea. Just an example. You can do that you can put an alarm because you have a study. You can structure yourself even in your finances. You have to even include what you're going to set aside for whatever demands you have ministerially. What happens is that you have things, you don't care about things. You forget and you don't care. Oh, I had to meet with so-and-so. No. Apostle, in that line, I was analyzing that whole topic. Like today, we have to give ourselves to the ministry, but first, all the dynamic of the ministry brings you to an order and a structuring in every area of our lives that allows us to do that. So it's not like you're going to be forced or listen, today I'm in a better condition to sow myself into the ministry and do more for the ministry, but it was the ministry that took me there. I didn't come like that. That's why I was saying that the kingdom, this is a ministry that promotes kingdom. The kingdom doesn't come to bring mess or to disorganize your life as such. Now, there are people that don't want to allow themselves to be formed and guided towards the kingdom through the ministry. So they force, wait, let me do this. No, let us teach you, because we're going to teach you how it's done. We're going to teach you how to handle family, business, and kingdom all together. Because at the end, the family and the business, they're also ministry. It's not that divorce from what has to do with your responsibilities. No. The kingdom covers everything. But there's a part that is more powerful, and it's the part of that calling. And the calling is where the ministry teaches you to fulfill your calling. So everybody needs to do this. Let me do an assessment and place your mission and your calling, put it within your calendar, put it within your budget, and that's it. Place within your calendar, I have to feed myself with the content of the ministry. Do I do it in the morning, in the afternoon, or evening? Put it in your calendar. Put it in your calendar, that's it. In your office, everything is in your calendar, right? Now in the ministry, is it like that? You're not thinking about the ministry in your budget, right? That's why you don't take advantage of what you have. Sorry, I had to say it. You don't want to put your budget towards the kingdom. So kingdom is not what's left over. I'm gonna give this. No. If you don't invest in the kingdom, how are you going to harvest? So then you look at others shining, but you know why they're shining? It's because they have the kingdom in the first place above everything. First, the kingdom. The wealth of man comes when they put God in the first place. And you might say, but what about all those millionaires that don't believe in the kingdom? No, those are crumbs. The wealth is that you have no money, but you're still wealthy because it comes with you. You die and you're still wealthy because it comes with you. Because everything will pass except His word. And the content that we handle is content of eternity. Do you know what it is to walk around with the content of eternity? And even though people neglect these things, we're not going to stop. Never. Because at the end of it all, there's one that sponsors the kingdom. And Christ came to establish kingdom, the kingdom of God. So truly, we have to give priority to the things of the kingdom, because it is what's going to liberate the wealth integrally in us. I've always said something very interesting. When you put yourself towards the things of God, then God puts Himself towards your things. Normal. So we have to understand that everything that is for the kingdom, meaning the ministry, everything you sow towards the prophetic, that has a dynamic and a sponsorship. That those that get to finally understand this, they discover a gold mine. Because it's not only that going to bring you satisfaction, but it will also bring fulfillment integrally in everything and in your environment. See how interesting? And that is what Lisette saw when she felt that joy of the fulfilled duty. She sent that report. I felt very happy, because I don't know if it was because of the mission or because of who did it. I said, wow, she did it. I said, Father, thank you. If I would have been Catholic, I would have crossed my hand and my chest and my face, because it was wonderful to see that she faced herself. This is, recently I was in a fair, like in rodeo, with cows and bulls and horses, wild animals. And there were some cowboys that were jumping on bulls, and they would grab them by the neck, and they would bring them to the ground. And I wrote to I was with a few members of the ministry, and they were like, "That's how you do to me, Apostle." And another one was there, and I said, "No, this is how I do him. He wants to run away often." When I saw that she fulfilled the mission to the T, look at everything that happened.
Una mujer con esta
You know, a woman in 40 minutes change and do makeup and be at the place in 40 minutes, that's impossible. In peak hour of traffic.
entonces
And she found the restaurant and she did what she had to do. So these are the things, the wonders. And you say, Father, thank you. And look how interesting. At the end,
al final nos
everything we do is to serve others, to be a blessing to others. And any person might say, oh, wow, to do so much for somebody? Well, let me tell you something. There's one that gave his blood for me,
cuando yo soy
even though I was evil. So what do you think about that? Tell me.
cuenta.
Do you understand? And those are the things that those that don't know, they reject. Those that don't know,
Tú lo ves peligroso.
they wasted their time. But not only did they waste their time, but now they're watching us and criticizing. And we don't care.
No me importa eso.
Because we know who we're talking to and we know who we're seeking. There are children that are crying.
Hay hijos que están
There are children that are begging for help.
y nosotros
And we are paying attention to see where those children are with need.
y mira
And look how Lisette sacrificed her time.
sacrificó
You understand? Sacrificed her resources to go for people. Like I would say, you know,
que no son ni
in my own language that mean and represent nothing. That is a powerful thing.
y así
And when you discover that that is what causes joy, that is what truly gives you happiness,
comienza a decir
then you say, whatever you need, count on me. I remember that Lee said one time
se agarró
when,
ella
you know,
porque fue ella que
she's the one that brought this up of how, you know, she used to be afraid. But when she came into herself, she sent me an email and she said, count on me for anything. And then I said, okay, send me your availability. And she sent me her availability.
ahí decía en el correo electrónico
And she said, you know, I'm free this day, I can always be available this day to that day.
que también estoy
And that's when I knew what her timeline was, her calendar.
calendario
And from there, I knew how to use it.
momento puede utilizar.
See how interesting?
Muy interesante.
So much so
Que
that we were in a mission not too long ago in Atlanta.
en Atlanta.
And we're in a meeting there. And I said, Lisa, you want to go to Atlanta?
Vamos a bajar.
You want to come? I want you to be in this meeting. And she said, yeah, count on it. Because I knew that she had the availability because she shared it with me.
Tuve a todos
This is so that you know everything that can be accomplished.
las personas que me dicen,
You know, it's anybody that tells me, count on me, I ask them for their calendar so I know. And then with that, in the planning ministry, I bring people in
ya lo organizan.
and we include them in any mission or any project. So how good when people say, count on me, I'm here.
Aquí estoy.
But
Pero
sometimes it happens also, people like Lisa,
como le dice,
that they hide
donde se agacha
because they don't want to be bothered. And it's not so that they won't be bothered, it's because of their insecurities. Recently, there was a case where a person
persona que no
that is not knowing how to use their wealth and would say, you know, you have so much and you don't use it.
la usa.
And somebody else intervened and said, I understand her.
Entiendo a ella. Ajá.
And she said, because I was like that. I was afraid and I was insecure.
Y yo
And I even would do things wrong so that I would be taken out of the things of the ministry. There are many people that because of insecurity, they do things halfway or they feel like they don't know. And you're like, where does that come from? And it's easy to explain. Marks,
marcas
manifested, so that you don't connect to what is of the kingdom because that will free the purpose of God in your life. But insecurities from not feeling enough, insecurities are marks. Marks that want to block you so that you don't connect. When Lisa said within herself, no, you have to go because you said that you were not going to run away anymore. And she assumed, she took it on.
¿Entiendes? Oye, lo decía.
And she took it on. And she did it. And she executed things And not only that, she fulfilled it, she sent her report, and she was happy. After that, she hasn't stopped. That's it. So, stop with the fear. If you're afraid, come. Because I want to tell you something. We want you afraid. We don't want you without fear. I'm not here because I'm brave. I'm the most afraid person. Are you kidding me? You say that and nobody believes you. Are you kidding me? Yeah, of course, because I've been doing this for a while, but no. I depend now. When you have a Holy Spirit that rises you with authority, that's something else. But the truth, no. I don't believe in any brave human. Because at the end of the day, you have a headache and you cry like a little girl, then you're not brave. So anyone that has pain screams. And to me, that's nothing strange. Man is vulnerable, no matter how brave they seem to be. They have a toothache and they cry like a little girl. So human beings are very vulnerable. I don't believe in brave ones. But the one that dwells in us is brave, and I believe in him. And when he takes you and says, let's go, then you say, oh, that's a spirit. And in the case of Lisette, she took charge because she had been facing that spirit of escapism, of double mood, of fear, of I can't. And she submitted to obedience. What happens with those that submit to obedience? That those that submit to obedience, then they acquire the authority of the one that sent them. Authority comes from you being subject to authority, not because you have authority. So my authority is not because I have authority, it's because I'm subject to authority. Anything else I can help with? It's clear. So she was sent, and I didn't count on her as authority. It was the authority that was sending her. She goes with authority that was delegated. So she's going to be sponsored with everything that is lacking or needed. That's where she returned back happy, because she knows that the minute that she decided to assume it, she began to rejoice until she came back. So how good is to see miracles and wonders, but lazy people never see miracles and wonders. The lazy ones, those that deny themselves, that don't obey, they're always either gossiping or criticizing or watching what they shouldn't be watching, because that is what entertains them. But the children, whether they're afraid or insecure, they decide, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. You're going to help me, right? Yeah, we're here. We'll do it. We're good. We're fine. You're fine. We'll do it. We're going to help you. Don't be afraid. You understand? But I'm going to tell you one thing. If you want to see the glory of God, then enter to the pit of the kingdom, of the ministry. There's no other way. You cannot send yourself. You cannot go because you have to be sent. If you're not sent, you're not going to do absolutely anything. So I don't understand how there are people that are going to make it. Them corner me and God. Let me tell you, person. Listen to me well. God does not deal with me and God. Let me tell you something interesting. God constituted the ministry, and He's going to tell you, but if you don't obey the one that I placed there, you think you're going to obey me that you don't see me? There's no way. If you violate what I established, do you think I'm going to receive a demon like you if you don't hear what I established? When Lazarus screamed, saying, Father Abraham, send somebody to my family. Send Lazarus. And he said, no, that there's prophets. If they don't hear the prophets that are there, what am I going to do? So if the prophets that are in front of you, you don't hear them, then my brother and sister, you're ugly. You're in a bad place. Let me tell you, it is mandatory that the move in a person needs to be as a body. Those that are alone, the devil takes them away. And that solitary spirit of Lone Ranger, that just brings craziness and anxiety and depression. That they look like people that look like Christmas trees, that they turn on and turn off. And sometimes they stay off and don't light up again. Okay? And that is what we have to understand. We do things through direction. We do things through direction, not human will. Not because I want, no. I like something about the ministry. And it's that the ministry has everything structured and organized. We don't have to make anything up. We don't have to make things up. Simply, we allow ourselves to be guided. We are letting the dynamic of the kingdom take place. Let's enter into that structure, that organizational chart, that timeline. You're going to start making things up when there's something already organized? This is not by chance. You know, they certainly said, but the one that's talking, she's trained nationally and internationally. She's not somebody that's a beginner. But what happens too is what she's saying is that even though I have all this preparation, the insecurity attacks me. And all the overwhelming, this is not a lot or much or little. This is that you have to do what you have to do. Because I wish, for somebody to let me choose what I want. Nobody allowed me to do that. But if somebody lets you, then I'm gonna start a strike. Sometimes people think there's privilege for some, but no, there's no privilege. There's no privilege in any area that we're given. No. What's a privilege is that we know who we do it for. The privilege that, listen people, God the Father receives glory when we give Him priority. And everything that has to do with God, let it take you and live within that order. Know where you connect, where you nourish yourself, and then what has been done for you. Do you know how many people that have been so ungrateful that one day somebody went for them and they never responded? You clean them, you bathe them, you organize them, you prepare them, and listen. Today they sit down, instead of being of help to you, they become ungrateful. People that, turn into very ungrateful people. And that's why the word clearly says that those that are given much will be demanded much. But all those that humble themselves before God, God will exalt them. Because those that exalt themselves, He will humble.
Gracias por sintonizar nuestro podcast Misión GJ. Nos vemos en un próximo episodio.